Well, let's get started. This is a little more informal anyhow. This is a workshop to talk about how to best handle our facilities and set some goals and make some plans for where to place our people to handle government. Mr. Toss, or you or Mr. Adam wanting to talk?
Guess I'll start a little bit. Hopefully in your package you received a building master plan discussion sheet and also a buildings at a glance spreadsheet.
Is all the buildings listed at the end of it?
Yes, sir. And in short, we operate roughly 55 facilities that receive somewhat of daily attention or daily occupancy. The collective age of our structures is 1,527 years old of the list that is on the buildings at a glance. The average age of our building is 24 and a quarter years old. If you take out the two oldest buildings, which were built in 1908, that drops that number to 21 and a half years old. Our sites are maintained by a public building department. We have 3 paid custodians and 3 maintenance men, which maintain those sites as well as some of the departments. We maintain 6 buildings that have bulk county operations, those being the Sheriff's Office, Administrative, and Jail, the County Prison, the Historic Courthouse, the Judicial Complex, and the Administration Complex, as well as the Annex. The Annex has changed over time since we've relocated both of those county services to the Historic Courthouse. Building master plans have been contemplated throughout my tenure here in Effingham County. It started, we received, I saw the parts of one that was done prior to the Judicial Complex construction. There was a staff committee created in 2006 and 7 to make recommendations, which were to go into a building master plan. Various attempts or discussions were made about a building master plan in 2008, 2009, and 2011. And 3 major themes have surfaced in those, which we'd like to discuss shortly. Each of those, and those are 3. The first is the campus approach. There's been an idea of combining services and locating them in one geographically centered area so that you can park once and access all your county services. We've moved somewhat towards that with the addition of the Historic Courthouse and moving some of those services from the Annex here. And our government services in downtown Springfield, for the most part, are centered between Pine, Early, Oak, and Laurel Streets, located here and just behind us in that block. And now within a block you have Superior Court, Clerk's Office, Superior Court, State Court, Magistrate Court, Solicitor's Office, Probate, County Probation, Tax Commissioner, Tax Assessor, District Attorney, GIS and Development Services, Building Inspection, and County Administrative Offices. There are still several offices at the Annex which do get somewhat of a heavy traffic load that are still there. And then we have some others that are still on different lots and different buildings scattered throughout the Springfield area. The second one is aesthetic improvements, and this is kind of twofold. Number one is the ongoing upkeep of our buildings. Government buildings typically exude a sense of permanence, and they're typically kept up to date in their finishes, meaning paint, wallpaper. There's been discussions about wallpaper in this building for some years. And the second one is just the general appearance of the building, meaning the hill site, public works and fleet maintenance being on the hill, the cars parked in that are either waiting to be surplus or salvaged for parts. And the third is functionality. The 2 older buildings that we still operate in, that being this building and the Annex, they were not designed for the purpose in which we are currently using them. As you well imagine, this was a Springfield Baptist Church, purchased in 1995, and it was designed for a church. The Annex was designed and built in 1960 for a school, and having a functional building that is planned and constructed to meet the actual physical needs of the user can create some efficiencies. Those being technologically sharing copiers, sharing plotters, scanners, those different types of things that everybody uses. If we operate 4 buildings, that means we have 4 copiers in each building. If they're all in one building, you can have a copy room maybe 2 copiers. And then the other one is saving in human capital, meaning every building has a receptionist or an admin assistant that helps with the daily meeting of clients and answering phones. So if you were to co-locate those, you could do that as well. So there's the benefits that we outlined in this proposal were a campus provides a one-stop shop, one-stop parking to access a vast majority of county services, would be a convenience to users of government services. Aesthetic improvements creates a sense of pride in government and where we are as a community. And creating and using functional facilities can save tax dollars by sharing human and technical resources, increases accountability and departmental oversight, gains efficiency and staffing and productivity. So we outlined 3 basic questions, and I hope you guys are prepared to give us some feedback on these questions. And the first one is, where do we need to be? Do we need to be located in downtown Springfield proper? Do we need to be located in walking distance or parking distance from the historic courthouse? Do we just need to be in the downtown Springfield area somewhere? Or do we need to be somewhere in Springfield but not downtown? And I ask that question largely because for this portion of our discussion, it's going to be on where the administrative offices should be.
Well, we got 2 buildings over there we can't move. Judicial complex and the old courthouse. They're here to stay, so we can't move them anywhere.
That's right.
So if we want together, we don't have to be right here where we're at today, more or less.
How much property we got right here? We got a big enough footprint. And how would we build on this side as well as continue to operate?
Well, let's go to,
Well, yeah, I'm jumping to the conclusion. Well, what's our other options? I mean, where in Springfield other than Cruz?
Well, that's what I was thinking when you asked us this question. My question right back is, where do we currently own land? And how much land is it in each space?
I'll answer that in just a second. We own ample property here. We own 2 blocks back there. We own the block that the Troutman building's on. We own the block, except for what the Historic Society owns, where the probation building is on the other side of, what street is that? Raven Street. So in downtown Springfield, around the courthouse, around the judicial complex, we own enough property to do what we need to do.
How much do we own on the hill area that's not the sheriff's?
Yeah, it's 15 or 20 acres. I don't remember exactly. It's a fairly sizable piece of property.
And how does that compare to the acres we have here? What do we have here as acreage?
It's city blocks. It's 4 or 5 city blocks. I would say the Hawk is buying 2 or 3 acres, possibly out of the 6 blocks, but it's scattered 2 different locations.
It's not all combined.
No.
Do we need, for the administration part, do we need to be within walking distance of the courthouse?
I think that's the ultimate question that we're trying to figure an answer for. And that's the question I think has to be answered first.
It's doing that walking, like, is that occurring every day right now?
Well, and would it possibly help if we told you who we envision being in that building so you could get a better sense of whether or not they needed the proximity to the courthouse? And I don't know this necessarily be courthouse proper to judges, but it's the courthouse, it's the people, the tax assessor, tax commissioner that are currently housed in the historic courthouse. And if we relocated, we would probably take development services, planning, GIS out of there and put some of the other DAs and other persons in that particular structure. But it's just, there's certain services that probably do need to be together. Us, development services like the health department. If you go to get a permit, you want to get a septic tank permit, you want to go to zoning and get your thing, you want to go to building permits. Those probably need to be located, but not necessarily near the courthouse. And I think that's the first question is, does the board just want to be near the courthouse? Or do we simply have a goal of keeping light services together, whether that's on the hill, whether it's landfill, whether it's central, wherever that may be?
And if I may, I'd like to tie in 2 more things to touch on what Toss is saying. The options that we're going to talk about are wide and varied, but every permutation changes something. And it sounds like the conversation is centered around the administration building, this building, of that nature. And that's true, but we can go through in just a minute why that's the case. Because each move for administration frees up other spaces to make way for other moves. So recommended for relocation or co-location would be the administrator, county clerk, human resources, finance, purchasing, development services, GIS, sanitation administration, public works administration, information technology, probation, and environmental inspections. That's who we feel like would probably benefit by all being in one building for oversight, meaning that the managers would be within a hallway of everybody that they actually manage. Secondly, like today, with development services and a portion of water and sewer being over at the historic courthouse and building inspections here, George is the zoning administrator, is the actual supervisor of those people, but they're located in 2 different buildings. That would actually close some buildings. That would close the probation office and the administration complex if we built a new building. It would free up the sanitation building to be used for fire, building inspections, or code enforcement. For fire at the sanitation building, we actually have money in our short-term MERT program to add on to Courthouse Road Fire Station to make that a 24-hour station. So if I was able to put fire in there, then I wouldn't have to build that new addition to Courthouse Road Fire Station, and we'd recoup that money to reallocate somewhere else.
In addition to a training center, which is in need of repairs, we could replace that also.
That's correct. If we moved Public Works Administration, meaning the director and the executive assistant, we would gain the executive assistant to be able to share that resource. And at the same time, when we built the fleet maintenance and public works facility, we wouldn't have to create so many offices in that new facility. We would only need a place for the actual staff to muster, meaning they would come in, the director could give them their assignments, and they could go on about their business without having a private office space.
We can move both of them out there to the courthouse road, property out there.
Yes, sir.
They wouldn't have to be up here.
We could, the biggest limitation we faced there was fuel, but I mean, we could get around that. I mean, there's certainly, that was the biggest limitation, crossing the fuel lines for all the equipment, fueling up all the trucks, but we could certainly get around that.
You got a big tank out
Yes,
there.
I mean, there's ways, it's doable, yes, sir, I agree.
If we put development services and GIS in the administration building, that would free up that space, which could be used by juvenile justice or the public defender, which is a building that we pay rent. It would also free up spaces, like I said, in sanitation, in public works, and in the historic courthouse. And that plan would close a total of, it also makes sense to include several other departments. Those being juvenile justice, public defender, coastal workforce, concerted services, victim witness, and family connection.
The two houses down here on the other side of the judicial complex, both of those houses are right up next to the road. You got plenty of room behind both of those, you could build something.
Yes, sir. And if we included those people in a new administration complex, that would close a total of 6 buildings, 5 of which are at or over 40 years old, 1 of which we pay rent for, and it would free up the property to be used for other things and or being sold off and be returning to the tax rolls. It would save on our insurance and utilities for operating 6 different buildings versus 1. Obviously, a new building would be more energy efficient with more up-to-date systems. And then again, it would save on technical and human resources.
Tear them 2 houses down and just build a whole complex right there on that whole block. And y'all talk about traffic.
The problem with doing anything in Springfield, anything major new, is parking. Like, like we talk about this park stuff. Parking is the biggest issue in Springfield.
Well, they talk about parking on city streets. You go to Savannah, that's the only place you got to park is on a city street.
We've talked about lots of different options, and I think we can make everything work. But the real question that we need from you, what we'd like from you, is where do you want to be? Do you want to be within walking distance of the courthouse? Do you want to be at Central? Do you want to be at another site like the Hill? Or do you want to be at the bank building? All of those things are options that I think have pros and cons to each.
I think more where we need to be. Can the, is animal shelter tied to being close to the sheriff's office?
No.
Any-
Other than humane enforcement's connection to animal control.
Gotcha. But realistically, they can be near the courthouse, right?
Correct, that was one of the
I'm not
original
saying-
plans, to have public works, fleet maintenance, and animal control out at the landfill facility on Courthouse Road.
I don't know if I have enough information to understand how to answer the question exactly correct, because I certainly understand for the good of the citizens' sake, it's also beneficial if they have 3 different departments to go to have those departments all together. That definitely makes common sense, and that's a good thing. But I don't know, like I'd have to hear from staff, are there scenarios in which you guys feel it's important on a day-to-day basis for certain departments to be close to the courthouse, because they don't have that ability now and it would help them because they could do this, or they do already have the ability and they're gonna lose it. I don't know. I don't know if there's cases like that, you need to make us aware. I mean, if it's just like, would we like it for the sake of saying we're close to them, that in itself is not necessary, but is there a reason it's functionally needed? You know,
Would they?
I'd say less for staff and more for the citizens. We do get, is complaints the right word? Concerns sometimes of people that have to go out to the annex and then come over here and then go over to that building just to get a building permit completed. By the time they go through sanitation, health department.
so again, those things should be put together,
Right.
no question mark.
Yes.
But is there a reason for us to be close to the courthouse? If we take any of those things that's needed and put them somewhere together, is there a reason for us to need to be close to the courthouse?
I don't see where we really need to be close to anything.
I don't, no ma'am, I don't believe so.
So then it's a
I
matter
think
of
it's
looking at
those
what land
services.
setup is the best for us, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I think it's pretty obvious that the court-related services, the DA, all that stuff would be best served if that's kept together.
Correct.
And then all of the other stuff, the county, basically everything else that's pretty much in our budget, other than public works and sanitation, needs to be located together somewhere, wherever that spot is. Public works that's out there, you know, we've talked about it before, it doesn't have to be there. There's multiple places it can be.
Because when you're saying there's 15 to 20 acres there.
But the one thing that we don't want to do is we be careful of, we got to kind of plan the future. The jail's being expanded right now. There'll be a day that they're going to have to expand again. Chatham County Jail, you know, they wasn't planning on having to do what they just did either. So, you know, we kind of need to keep in mind whatever we do out there, that we need to kind of reserve some acreage for that next expansion that's, I hope, past my lifetime.
Unless we do away with the prison and expand that way, because that's definitely been talked about.
Yeah, and I think that the plans anticipated that they would expand out towards the tree line, not necessarily towards, there was another couple hundred beds they threw in there.
Surely there's a design, an overlay of the proposed jail of how it can be added on to, right?
Correct.
So we could
Yeah, that's what I meant, that was considered in the design.
Consider
It was
the whole
going
thing.
out another wing, out this way.
And if you knew that there's two, like that's an option for you to put together for us to look at and possibly compare it to if there's another viable, if there's something else that you feel is viable. But when all these pieces of property over here are not connected, and there's no, you know, that's a problem.
And it's difficult, and that's why one of the reasons why we had wanted to have this discussion was because we took one example, just as an example, taking this building completely down and building something new here, or using one of our other squares to build something. This could be two-way parking on both sides, and if you closed this Franklin, I think this Franklin, if you close Franklin, you can park two ways on Franklin. This becomes basically an 8-lane parking lot or an entrance to Omer Park. That's one consideration. Or we could go to the back square, build a new building there, make Omer Park from there next, and all of this becomes parking. So there's each way it works, I think. It just depends on where you like to be. And I think there's a million different options. We could do like Reggie said, build in probation, where probation and the old drug building was. You use the square down here at Troutman and use the other square that we have there entirely for parking. So.
Well, I need to see at least conceptual drawings to show what the layouts would look like and who you'd move where and things like that, until we can get a proper comparison.
And that was, again, the difficulty in the infinite number of permutations is that, yeah, we could go to the hill, we could go to the landfill, we could go to Central, we could go to any of these squares over here. And I think the first question was, does the board just want to be here? Because if you do, all those others obviously fall away. Now, those are still options, we can certainly evaluate each one of those.
I don't know. Personally, I don't know that the landfill seems like, it seems so far removed that it doesn't seem like
It is.
I would think the hill would be
The
as
hill
far
seems
as
like the
Yeah.
best option.
venture.
Yeah, and I would think Springfield being the county seat, you'd want to be
You know, it'd be,
somewhat near here.
well, you got a whole block on the other end of this block where the old Truman building is, and the old health department. You got a whole block there that could be used for something. You could build a new building there.
Yes.
Well, out of the 4 blocks back there, we own 3. So we're pretty confident. Yeah, don't ask me to point
Which
one.
3 there?
We don't want to tell you which 3.
But when we go to
But
build.
down the other end, we own all of that. But the Trooping building was in the health department, we own all that.
We know we own those two, for sure.
That's a
Well,
whole lot.
there's several sites that we could go to. I mean, we can build out by the old central, if that's going to wind up being, there's sites we can go to. The question that we've got to answer first is, do we want to remain downtown Springfield, close proximity to judicial complex? And if that's, because I was under the impression that there were some commissioners that felt like that's where we needed to stay down here.
Well, it is.
And if that's the direction of the board, then staff, we don't need to look at these other options.
Well, and again, it does limit it. I mean, we have to be within walking distance of the courthouse, or we need to be in Springfield proper, you know, with just the parameters. I mean, if the board says, look, we don't have to be within walking distance, but I do want to stay in the county seat. Well, then obviously the landfill site's out, or some other site, central is probably,
I pretty well, I'd say if you want to do what Ms. Veer is asking, is why not just, let's just give direction, just come up with options, keeping the administration in the city limits of Springfield. And there's 2 or 3 variables what that could be, and then what we would do, what would be in that building, what would be in the courthouse and judicial area.
well, when we did the jail site, we had the entire site surveyed for this reason, and we knew there would be other things coming up, and we really envisioned the vehicle maintenance and public works, but we could certainly go back and look at that. I mean, I don't know if that matters, we can put that in the landfill.
And I think that would just get you down to 3 or 4 options, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And I think realistically, staff believes, and I hope we, a new facility can work at any of these sites that have been discussed.
Yeah.
And so, all things being equal, it's almost where you want it. That makes it easier on us than trying to scheme out how we could build a new building on the.
But are all things equal when you get down to building the cost of the building and things like that? And depending on the site, it's not always equal.
That's true.
That can be a factor.
We know that water capacity at Central was going to be an issue, most likely.
Or tearing down numerous buildings, or
Mhm.
et cetera, you know, how much dirt you need, how all that.
And one of the things Joanna brought up, which I do think is relevant, in fact, very relevant, there is a lot of transactions between finance, paper, going back and forth between tax commissioner, the courts. Being somewhat close is a benefit for this building to be somewhat close to those other facilities, as well as there's management oversight as well.
Down here would be ideal, it'd be right across from the old courthouse.
I think there's several options in this general area, yes, that we can
Just
do.
being organized and having a runner every day, you know, being able to work around that, I mean, that would solve that.
Yeah.
Well, and it would also help with the owner issue. If the board does want to go forward and put money into parking, we could co-locate those two together. We could have that parking service this building instead of having to go, just say the Hill, build parking for that building and then come build parking on over.
And those are the financial considerations that we need to have to deal with.
One could serve
options.
both uses, I believe.
Well,
And will benefit the courthouse on court days when they're overfull.
like this sometime back, I ran some preliminary numbers, and that's when we were talking about all these backup batteries and all this. Every facility that we have, and we have backup batteries here, IT here, we've already gone through those numbers this year as a board, and looked at how expensive that is. So if we close the street over here and we could somehow connect to the judicial complex, and we could come out and we could use backup generators, IT support, and connect, I think that the cost savings is going to be greater to be able to do that than to go build another standalone building somewhere.
Well, the batteries is out at the
Well,
911 center.
that building's
Radio
already
got
been
out there.
That building's already been built. I wish that we were doing this right now, because I think we could build a basement over here like it's over there, and that would have been the ideal place to have the map center in the basement of the new building sitting right over here. But it's out there. But the board can answer the question as to where we need staff to be looking and running numbers to come back. But we've got to hit that hurdle first, I think.
think we need the other end here and add the other end.
And when he mentioned the bank building, the bank, the old CNS Bank, Bank of America, that building is available. By the time you put the numbers that they want for it, and look at the renovation cost, you can build a building, a new building, and you're not starting over with another old building again. And you can build it like we need it, not retrofitting another building again.
And that's a long distance from here too, if you had to walk.
And if you're going to do that, then you might as well be on the hill.
Had them two houses down here, they ain't nothing to them anyway. Well, that brick house is pretty nice, but it didn't have
How many square feet we talking about, Todd? We talking about 20,000?
Preliminary estimates, now understand how this was done. Adam got plans from Husky Onion, from Richmond Hill, Garden City, several buildings in the house, and we took an average to say that a executive suite, which is like, county administrator, is 235 square feet. A director position is 150 square foot, a worker bee is 80. We use those numbers times the number of offices we had. That's the level planning, and added 30% corridors, mechanical rooms and stuff. With that being said, we believe in the neighborhood of 18, is that right?
So somewhere around 20,000.
Yes, sir, between 15 and 20,000. Now that's no pen to paper, that's simply plugging numbers of offices we can possibly gain.
Which I think the bank building then is 18,000 in it.
I don't know. What it
To
is.
put it in perspective, I think.
Yeah.
We also
Well, that was
use
third-
general services administration numbers, is the other side of that, the average. The government numbers. how they do it.
And let me go ahead and back up. We've got a lot different departments. That includes administration, county administrator, director, communications, executive assistant, county clerk, human resources, HR, finance, purchasing, development services, zoning administrator, permit tax, zoning clerk. So that's everybody in building, GIS, environmental services, it's the health department also.
That's about sanitation.
Oh, I'm sorry, sanitation, public works, IT, probation, juvenile justice, public defender, environmental inspections, commissioners, conservative services, family connection, coastal workforce, and victim witness. Some of those could probably go to the old historic courthouse, and we cleared that out. So that was everybody in one building.
But we're paying tax assessors, tax commissioner,
No.
all those within here.
No, state.
No,
No, they already have a courthouse.
I know where they are. I'm just talking about where we would put it.
no, they were not in these numbers. We can certainly give these to you. I just want to stress where they came from, which was a very high level look at how this comes together, which indicated, like say 20,000 square feet, between 15 and 20.
Bill, from your expertise, and I'll ask anybody else, but commercial building built to commercial standards, what would we have cost per square foot? Now, I know it all depends on finishes and everything else.
Yeah, there's,
Multi-floor,
Depends on the site, again, that like Ms. Jones will say, depends on the site. If we're on one of these city blocks, 18,000 probably would. If we had to get out, or if we went over to the hill, there's certainly room for it if it's practical to build on one of those.
I think you're talking about a multi-story building.
I think
I think if you're in this downtown area, it's gonna have to be at
It's gonna have
least
to.
2 floors.
Yes, sir.
But I just, with all things equal, I just feel like we're crowding out the old courthouse. You know, I just, it's what it feels like to me. I've always thought the new courthouse kind of looks out of place, you know what I mean? If there's a need to be there, that's fine, you know.
The judicial complex being near the
Judicial.
courthouse is what, you know, maybe the judicial complex could have been in a better place, but that's where it is.
Well, we can't change that.
No.
It's kind of like the Corps of Engineers building downtown Savannah with all the tile. Just don't look right.
Yeah, for perspective, the de facto building is 9,000 square feet, so you would have that building 2 stories to get to 18. So yeah, it'd be a 2-story building, at least built downtown, built here.
You'd have room to build it down there on the 2 lots on the other side of the judicial complex.
I think so. There was a master plan done in London for it today, never could find it. They anticipated all this, it was done in 2008, I guess, 7 or 8, and we just couldn't.
That's a whole block down there. I mean, it's,
Well, what are,
It's just a parking issue.
what are engineers quoting for commercial construction? 200, 250, what are they quoting?
Well, see, that was very too. We got construction costs off of some of those buildings and they kind of average them, but it's like Garden City, if you walk into that, we're certainly not anticipating.
No, that's what, that's what we're gonna build in Garden City Hall.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Very nice.
we didn't, I'm telling you the number we used, but I don't know how accurate it is. Now, you did verify Brian Kenny's, didn't you?
That's
Did you
correct.
tell you, was that number?
It was around the 150.
So Brian Kenny just built theirs at about 150 a foot. And I've not
I was
been, I've
thinking
ordered
150
it.
and 170, you know, just.
And I thought you should be able to do it for that, I just didn't think anybody would be quoting that. That's like-
Nobody quoted that.
No, not at all.
I think you'll be around 200 to 225, including the site work.
No, this was, yeah, 150 was not including sidewalk.
All right, 225 with the site work.
Well, if you need to see more permutations on areas, can we confine them then to Bank, Hill, downtown Springfield, Central?
All right, was anybody interested in the bank?
No,
No.
I don't think anybody.
Too far.
Nobody's.
No, I think we're at downtown or Hill, is that? what I-
In the hill, you wouldn't be accomplishing anything out there, you might as well be down at the annex.
And that's what I think, those two options, either downtown, over here around the courthouse, if we can get reasonable parking, or separate out that
Is
administration.
the annex not a possibility?
It's a possibility, but that's.
Well, is it in city limits?
That's where they want road for rec, right?
Right.
That's the long-term rec plan. The plan has always been to tear down the current annex so we could expand the gym and then grow the fields and parking.
And hypothetically, we've talked more about, we talked about not buying that piece of property when we went to the workshop with the recreation department. And hypothetically, depending on how you do your site work in the recreation, once you add the gym, you might be able to add another field up next to Lakeview. And you might be able to get an extra ball field without even having to purchase additional property.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, so if we confine those two spaces, does that sound good? Locations? Does everybody feel good with who we've talked about co-locating?
Yeah.
Talking about this spot down here, the one where the Truman building is?
No, it's the apartments. The apartments we're talking about co-locating.
Right, similar apartments,
Yes, sir.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
How many ways you can slice that one up?
Right. But I do think it'd benefit us to have it, I mean, we can separate the two areas, but having them brought together is a good idea.
So you were saying the building that we built for sanitation could be used for a fire station?
Not for a fire station. We have, the fire training center is located at 2750 Courthouse Road, which is in the rear of the landfill or our transfer site. It's two trailers that were donated by the school board. They're dilapidated, awful condition. In my opinion, they probably need to be gone away from now. They could use the conference room as fire training center. They could do their testing, their classwork there. The other option is it was built for a staff of 4, a code enforcement, a director, a receptionist, and an environmental coordinator. Is that correct? We now have 2 people operating in that building, so there's 2 empty offices. Those could be converted to bedrooms or day rooms. We also have a full second floor, which is heated and aided, that is currently used for storage, that could be used as a living quarters to operate the fire station on Courthouse Road. So it could be used for living quarters and the fire training center, without having to build living quarters onto the Courthouse Road fire station.
Okay, that's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah, where it gets costly is when you have living quarters in the same building.
Because you do, I didn't know you could do that, I didn't know you could have a living quarters separate like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not that far separated. Right now, they're staying back at the training center, I believe. There's some sort of arrangement down there. So it's actually closer and better than what they have now. But there's certainly use for the building, and on the short term, even building inspections, code enforcement's currently there, could house in that particular facility. And we're working towards ways of getting them more mobile, to where we can disseminate information directly to their vehicles and have them, as they come up on an inspection, to be able to enter that information directly in the AED at that point in time, instead of handwriting it, then bringing it back to the office, then entering it. So to just get them a little more expeditious in what they do, a little more efficient, and a little more mobile, so they're not confined to an office. We can push information back and forth.
And we actually segregated the building with a fire door you know, or with a door in the hallway, so that landfill operations could still operate out of that building with the rest of the building being used for some other purpose. Meaning the scale operation, scale power setups.
At what point are we gonna need to really have some consulting and really get into the feasibility?
Well, I think what we were looking for is consulting on what, you know, we want to
Yeah,
build
yeah.
a design the building and board said we don't want that or those services. I think we're getting a lot closer to that. I think we can now go back and dig into the conceptually, let's look at the lots we have downtown, let's look at the parking, let's see what we can do, and if we can make that work. And look at the other one, do some very high level costing, and then I think we can get into that. We just, so.
And then the two considerations are what's good for staff and employees, and then also what's good for citizens as far as functionality of getting in and out and all that. So I think that both of these places, location-wise for citizens and all, also are good possibilities.
Yeah. And in the past, going back to what Commissioner Loper said, the one thing that kept us away from moving really first vehicle too, was the proximity to the sheriff, which is their largest consumer. You know, their largest user of that service is the sheriff's department. They would then have to go all the way out to the landfill site or courthouse site to drop off vehicles and so forth. And the other was the proximity to fuel islands to public works, which is why one of the decisions that played into putting the jail facility there as we did, that we thought that we could demolish both the public works building, which is another trailer that's throwing gaps larger and larger by pushing the pile, and the vehicle maintenance facility, which was built in the 50s or 40s, which is in horrible condition too, and combining one new facility. And what we gained out of that was the fuel islands are already there. We don't have to bring any other tanks out any other way. There's also the pole barn that they call it that's there, that the public works uses for their signs to store in. They store equipment under it. There's a lot of uses they get out of that. We would not have to rebuild that in another location. The little ice house that they have, you know, different things that are already on that site, we would need to recreate if we moved them. So it was able to keep those facilities that we already have and replace them with a much less expensive building than what we had originally contemplated, which housed all public works staff. So we could bring the in-house staff, the public works director and their admin people into the same building we occupy, with the same concept of getting them more mobile too, that we have their foremen be able to receive work orders and stuff digitally rather than having to get paper copies in the office.
So am I to understand that we're leaning towards going out and using the hill site and structuring everything out there?
Or here.
Or here, and personally, just my thought off the cuff, I think we're better off to leave vehicle maintenance and public works there, because the other things we do is if we build a new facility, we would orient it where public works currently is and reuse their parking lot. So we wouldn't have to recreate a parking lot, recreate the entrances, you know, to 119, all of the pieces we already have there. We could reuse those also. And it does keep the services down here closer, and I think it intermingles the parking situation between Ulmer and our new building. I think it marries a lot of those. But we'll certainly take a look at all the different alternatives and see which one makes sense.
If we can do it here in one of the sites and convert some other into parking, and we can get enough parking to supply, you know, what's necessary, I would tend to think this area would be the better choice if we're going to do something like that.
That's my first reaction.
And then after that, if we say, well, we just can't do it, there's no way to make it happen, keep in the parking, then I think it needs to go out to the hill.
Yes.
And then the related reaction because of that, First Services and Public Works, that's not a big deal. If they had to move, we could move them. But that's what I would say is first choice, second choice, and we would have to relocate them to wherever place we decide to go. But we gotta have, if we're gonna do it, though, we wanna make sure we got enough parking for what we're doing.
So I guess the answer to our third question, where is here, you're saying new construction versus rehabilitation, adaptation, or hybrid would be the best thing to look at.
I would think we've spent enough time and energy redoing and making things work. We need new construction.
Let's just say we had all the money and everything was good today. What time frame does this board think it would take this board to make decisions on how to move forward.
What kind of money are we talking about and where are we gonna get it from?
That's gonna be.
Those, we haven't talked about that.
Give us that
First, we gotta have a
answer that.
Yeah.
We have the money.
That's right, that's right.
Go for it, we got the money to do it.
Well, and also we need to do some looks, because obviously, it depends on the site, depends on what has to happen on the site, what the building looks like, if it's 2 stories, 3 stories, 1 story.
Adam thought he could trick us and get an answer from you, right? Adam thought he could trick us and get an answer.
No. The reason I asked that question is this building needs repairs. We talked about the things that are going on here. The windows, we had problems with the windows. There's a pane that's falling out of this, and we've got the roof problem.
If the budget's not a problem, if there's no problems, if everything's set, I don't think there's any hold back.
Okay.
But those things have to be answered.
Well, I'm gonna win the Mega Millions tonight,
You
and
and
I'll
Dennis
just,
vote.
I'll donate.
You and Dennis vote.
How about that? Dennis can win.
You gonna sign something out of that?
I'm on the record. Right?
Yeah.
No, sir. I believe that certainly helps. Now that we have 2 sites, we'll get a plan to know what they look like. We'll cost both of those out and get back with y'all as expeditiously as possible.
And if there's more than one way to put it here in your estimation,
Yeah, I'm sure there
here,
is.
whatever,
Yeah.
whatever ideas along that sense, I think we're open to.
I would think, just my thought would be, if it's in Springfield, it'd be best on the other end of the courthouse down there.
Whatever piece of property we don't have
But it's right
certainty
straight
of
across the
ownership,
road courthouse.
And this becomes
let's
part.
get that. Whatever it takes to have an attorney get title insurance and
Would you be
do whatever
object
needs
if
doing,
there
let's
was
do
a way
that.
to connect to that building over there? and
Let the board tell us. That's
I
a
mean,
good
would
idea.
that, is there anything
What do
negative
you
to
want
that?
me to do to get the board to tell you?
Just recommend that the board agree to that again. Right.
Just a bit
Well,
of break.
The board can't, seriously, the board needs to tell you to
That's
make sure
all.
that
That's on the back side on the other.
There's nothing but a parking one, an enclosed
We
parking.
just need authorization to spend money.
Just be a security.
We can't build on it if we don't have
Security
ownership.
check.
No, the ownership's in this.
I'm not so sure if we couldn't
I'm trying to
operate
get
the
the
hallway down by,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
connect.
we haven't started ownership meeting, right? It's over here.
When we conclude, we'll just say,
Which
make sure we
would be
clear up that
security
first.
check.
You can still come from the other way.
Yeah, 2 blocks back there.
Where's the parking lot?
Also,
But she's saying, if it's parking, if it's on the park, let's go ahead and get that in.
Well, what would you build here connected to that?
A skyway.
Well, actually,
Well, come up with whatever you think is going to
No, it
cost
would
them to
be,
get on our
that
agenda.
close that street right
we close that street. And then this right here, if that worked, this right here would kind of be one that'd be in a parking over here, and that would kind of be the entrance to the Ulmer Park kind of thing. It would look good. But this little issue's got to be kind of resolved before we start spending money or looking at plans for back there. Are we gonna be spending money again on a project without a,
Well, I agree with Ms. Jones, if it's okay with the board, we'll go ahead and prepare these 2 scenarios, start working on concepts for these various sites. We'll go ahead and clear up the legal matter of the ownership of the square behind us, the block behind us, which we know is owned between us and Springfield. So we can go ahead and take care of that as well.
And I guess the only other thing I'm thinking about is if you was trying to connect to something, you're gonna want to build it to match something.
that's expensive.
And the judicial complex is built to, or was designed to be added on to. Now, I'll say that everybody in construction knows that's not going to be an easy task, because everything on that side of the building is closed offices. Number 2, there's the chiller houses on that side. And if you came on this side, all of your plant operations, telecom, everything is buried, and you'd still face the same thing with the offices. You'd be intruding in people's daily workspace.
Come up with a plan of what we can do.
We definitely have work to do on the financial side.
At the end of the day.
What's that?
At the end of the day, it's got to be feasible financially and show that it's viable.
So does that staff have the direction that we need to move